All right, everybody, welcome to Brighter. So the news that came out this weekend is that the Chinese car maker BYD is now closing in on Tesla in terms of sales of electric vehicles. For this third quarter, Tesla only sold 3,400 more EVs than BYD. Now, of course, Tesla's planned factory shutdown and their downtime for the upgrades to the production lines, that made a major reason for this. But despite that, there's no doubt BYD is growing and growing fast. Today, we're going to take a closer look at BYD. We'll compare not only their sales, but also their profitability. So we have Brian White with us today. He has his own YouTube channel called MyTeslaWeekend. He's a regular with me every Wednesday, and he just knows so much about China, which he lived there at one point, and he knows quite a bit about BYD as well. So he's the person we're going to ask about this. Welcome, Brian.
Great to have me on the show. Thank you, Herbert.
All right, well, let's get to this. This is BYD, which is obviously one of the biggest competitors to Tesla. We know that the Chinese EV makers are the ones that's going to be really the big force for electric vehicles along with Tesla as we move forward here. So let's just remind folks what we're looking at here. This is the kind of, lineup that BYD has, and they all come at various different segments with different price points. Brian, what's your which one of these BYDs did you actually sit in and take a look at?
The Han is the one that I had a chance to experience in Farnborough, England. They had a few different, two different models. I don't remember what the other one was, but the Han, it's a very capable, competent car. It feels nice. It looks nice. The doors close very firmly and as you would expect them to. There's this myth that that's very easy to have when you live in the US and you don't see much in terms of Chinese cars, to think that they're just junk. And if you look back 20 years at Chinese manufacturing, they manufactured a lot of junk. But starting with the days of the iPhone, that reputation's been upended quite a bit. And what you've got now is serious cars, serious electronics of all kinds, serious original IP coming out of China. They chose to become the world's leading manufacturer of lithium-ion batteries. And boy, did they take that task seriously and rose to the occasion.
Yeah, so we're just taking a look at this closer. This is the BYD Seal, $29,000. Beautiful car. Yeah. This is the BYD Auto 3, which just came out recently.
Right. And the styling, you can say that you don't particularly care for it, but those look like all the other cars on the road. They look fine. I think they look good. And they're obviously increasing in popularity, as we can see. A lot of BYD's sales are still in the domestic Chinese market, where they are selling cars that are not quite as fancy or up-spec'd as the ones we see exported. And that's a deliberate choice. They know what their market wants, but they also understand the reputation they have to maintain as they export. They don't want to be viewed as the cost leader. I went to a speakers panel on Chinese cars in England, and the host of the panel was saying he's a Chinese car reviewer. He's a Chinese auto industry expert living in China. And he was saying that a gentleman asked, how come I see these $20,000 cars and by the time they get to Europe, they're $50,000? And he said, because they're not exporting the base models, they're exporting the really good ones. And then you've got freight and import taxes and whatever else, and then a dealer markup. So, but the big part is they're not sending the cheap ones. They're sending the best ones.
These are the numbers that was just reported. So you can see here that in Q3, the battery electric vehicles was deliveries for Tesla was 435,000 and BYD was $431,000. This is a beautiful chart that explains it. So in September quarter, this is what we're looking at here, the newest numbers. And in black is BYD's fully electric vehicles. And they're catching up. Look at these beautiful steep lines here. And then in yellow, it's Tesla's deliveries. And you can see at the bottom, the bottom end here in September, third quarter, there's a dip, of course, because of the planned factory downturns. Any comments on this chart here?
Yes, absolutely. So first is that yellow dip, and that's when all the factories outside of China were closed down. That did not impact BYD, but it did impact Tesla. That second big dip is when on the black line is when all the factories in China were closed, which is where
Hmm.
almost all of BYD's manufacturing is, and only some of Tesla's. So you can, if you take those out, you can see that the lines are going to be pretty comparable, especially that Q2 22 to Q4. You can see that they are on the same pace, and yeah, they're now the Q1 to Q2 of 2023, BYD was on a sharper trajectory. And then, of course, this most recent quarter, Tesla had planned factory downtime. But what we're about to see is, well, for one thing, there's probably not going to be any downtime for a Tesla factory this quarter, unless the Highland refresh in Fremont. It could come at the end of the quarter, but that's only a small part of production for Tesla. And then you've got new efficiencies in Model Y manufacturing, and the Highland numbers are going to increase out of Shanghai. And then you've got some Cybertruck deliveries will begin. Those will start ramping in earnest next quarter, we believe. So Tesla's numbers are going to keep swelling, and this is the best race to watch. It's very exciting. One thing I did want to say about BYD is a year ago, I interviewed Sandy Monroe at the Florida TeslaCon. And what I said to him is, take Tesla out of the race. Who's number two? And without any hesitation, he said BYD. BYD, they're the ones to watch. Because like Tesla, uniquely, they are vertically integrated. They make their own batteries. They design their own chips. They don't fabricate, but they design their own chips. They do it all in-house as much as they can, much like Tesla.
If you can, please consider supporting this channel. You can get for free 3 milestone tables that list every major milestone Tesla's ever had since 2003. Please check it out. Simply go to my website at herbertong.com. Thank you for that, Brian. That was great. Thank you for explaining those the charts going up and down. That was fantastic. So let's take a look what Bloomberg TV reported on this when we saw the September quarter numbers. Chinese car maker BYD is closing in on Tesla in terms of sales of electric vehicles. Of course, this came because of the factory downtime. So let's watch their video of this.
Well, let's get to the nuts and bolts of it. How did BYD do?
Yeah, BYD sold 431,000 EVs across the third quarter, and they were 3,456 EVs away from toppling Tesla as the world's biggest and best-selling EV brands. So they were very, very close, and it's a culmination of many, many things over the years. And in recent years, that investment, that push with new factories coming online, with a great push in China and globally, and also releasing a lot of new models at vastly different price points, they're able to get to this stage where they're now so close to toppling Tesla.
When then? When can it overtake Tesla?
This is a really, really big question. We have one expert who follows the EV industry says, or told me rather, that this could happen as soon as the next quarter. At the moment, you're still more likely looking at into 2024 before BYD overtakes Tesla in this pure EV sales when you look at them like for like. But with Tesla having that bit of a blip in the third quarter, they're more likely to get back on a more normal trajectory in the fourth. Though BYD is also going to be following with increasing sales, it really does remain a question whether they can match Tesla and exceed in that fourth quarter as soon as that time.
Danny, give us a sense of, where we are in terms of this EU probe into subsidies. And also, these companies, these electric vehicle companies, have been overproducing as well. What's going on with that?
I mean, there is still early days with this EU probe, and very much BYD and Tesla are in the crosshairs here. So it still remains to be seen what happens, what is the outcome of this probe. It still is going to take many, many months for sure for the European Union and for Brussels to take a look at what has really been going on to their suspicions and whether they nail any evidence that any of these companies in China have benefited from illegal subsidies. So we'll just have to wait and see for that outcome.
Okay, so we should mention, of course, just to put everything in perspective, that Tesla's Model Y is still the number one selling vehicle in China. BYD has many different kind of segments, as we showed earlier, with lots of different price points. And Tesla only has the Model Y and the Model 3. Now, when the compact car comes out, well, at some point maybe they'll sell the Cybertruck there too. Those will add in, and you can see kind of like the race truly go on. But tell me what you saw there, Brian.
So the first thing is absolutely right. When Tesla introduces a compact car, the game is going to change. I think, first of all, I think Mr. Lee was very much on the money on all of his points. And that's great to see some actual balance instead of screaming heads. But the thing with that is who is going to be in the top spot next year? We don't know. And it may be that Tesla runs away. It may be that BYD does. But really, if they're going back and forth in first place, that's a good thing. That's an everybody wins situation. Now, when he was saying that the cars are cheaper, they are. If you look at the BYD Chin, for example, that's a $18,000 to $20,000 car, and it's a hybrid, and it's gutless. It's a pretty car, but it's 170 horsepower. It's not exciting. But some consumers want that. They don't need 300 horsepower. So then the market there is genuinely huge. Now, on the cheaper thing, I've seen people say, great, but they're not making as much money as Tesla. And that's true. They're not making as much money as Tesla, but that's okay. Tesla can't sell all the cars in the world. And if the choice is between BYD selling a cheaper car with a smaller margin or someone buying a dirty car, the choice is done. It's easy. We know which one is better. It's replacing a gas car. And then they said, well, they're only making money because they're still selling hybrids. Again, I'm of a couple different thoughts on that, but the biggest one is BYD could not sell in the numbers they do if they weren't selling hybrids. And hybrids are better than a pure gasoline car, at least for the environment. For the consumer, I would argue maybe not, but it's the consumer's choice. They're the ones buying them. BYD couldn't make enough batteries to sell all their NEVs, their new energy vehicles, which includes hybrids, as pure electrics. There aren't enough batteries yet. So these are all steps in the right direction. And if the hybrids are what allow them to actually get these electric cars on the market without losing, the whole company, that's a net win for everyone.
Yeah. Talking about new energy vehicles, then here's the stats on that. So BYD's monthly sales of new energy vehicles, which is everything, right? Battery electric vehicles, plug-in hybrids, any kind of vehicle that they have. So you can see that it's just beautiful, growing monthly. It's going up there. Here it starts in January 2023 to September, and that's where you're seeing the sales. So they've now sold 2 million cars for the year up to this year. And about 50% of that is battery electric vehicles, almost exactly like 1 million and a bit, and 1 million a bit of it is the plug-in hybrids. So they're doing very, very well. But if you look at profitability, though, then that's where you got to really understand that Tesla still is 4.2 times more profits per car sold. So this is from AJ. I've been using his tweet quite a bit every day so far this week. He's got something really good. And he says is what they don't realize is that even though BYD is the strongest Chinese competitor, Tesla makes 4.2 times the profit. So if you look at the numbers in the first half of 2023, Tesla is making $6,500 per car, but BYD is making $1,500 per car.
No, I think that's 5.7 billion total versus 1.3 billion.
Yes, right here. But then he basically.
Oh, I see. Equals 6,005. Gotcha. Exactly. No, you're right.
Yeah. Yeah.
So yeah, they're making 4 times as much profit on the same revenue. Yeah. But that's okay because BYD is not losing money. They will continue growing. They will continue expanding. And if they believed they could sell their cars at a higher price, I'm confident they would. They know what price sells at. They're not giving them away for fun. It's what they have to do to gain market share. and they're gaining market share against the legacy car companies, and they're not losing money.
Yeah. So this is an analysis by UBS, which is explaining that they think that Tesla and BYD is going to dominate electric car sales. They're going to beat the legacies, and here's why: they both have cost cost advantages and profitability, like you were saying. Okay, and so when you look at this is UBS saying that Chinese EV manufacturers will continue to steal market share from traditional car brands. And here's why: the BYD seal, specifically this one particular car, has a 16% margin, in part because 75% of the value of the car is manufactured in-house. And they talk about the LFP battery being built in-house, and that's why they're able to have that huge margin available for them. In fact, they say that the seal is 15% cheaper to manufacture than a made-in-China Tesla Model 3. Even compared to the Tesla Model 3, it's cheaper to make. Now, because the Model 3 is priced higher at $28,000 versus $25,000, even though it's a little bit cheaper in terms of make, it still is much more profitable for the Model 3. And they do say that Tesla's control of its own software, something most brands outsource, it is able to get a similar profit per car. And then they continue saying that, boy, compared to the legacy car makers, though, we're talking about a 25% cost advantage to BYD. This is really bad news for Volkswagen and Toyota. I mean, really, it's the name of the game, right? Being able to mass produce these cars that are very good cars, but yet cheaper to make. How are you going to compete with that?
So UBS is a pretty solid organization. Like all of these prognosticators, they often fail to miss big trends coming up. But what they're awfully good at is recognizing what's already happening and what's already happened. When they say that they believe the cost is 15% less, I believe them. But I would argue that a Model 3 is more than 15% more car for your money. Consumers obviously think it's worth more than that. So but having your costs in-house like that, as much of your product, supply chain, all of it in-house is helping. And the big thing that I saw at the show in Farnborough in England, where so many of the EV companies were represented, was that Europeans are concerned for the future of their brands. They're looking at the ID4, the ID Buzz, and then they're looking at the Chinese versions, which are, there's only so many form factors out there. The MG, the Aura, the funky Aura Cat, the Aura Funky Cat, all those, they're good cars, and they're a bit cheaper. They're 5,000 pounds cheaper than the European models. And in many ways, they're better cars. So the Europeans are already not making money against BYD, selling something that's more expensive and less compelling. So the Europeans, the legacy car brands in this statement, should absolutely be terrified.
Yeah. All right, Ryan. So thank you for that. So just to give a little teaser, we're going to do another show that we'll publish tomorrow. We're going to take a closer look at this particular graph here. But basically, what this reminds you is that Tesla's Model Y is still the #1 selling car in China. And if this is the green is the 2023 bar, this comes from Pololi on X. And you can see that Tesla Model Y is #1. Then you've got BYD, #2, the Chin Plus. And then, if you look at it, the BYD has so many car types that they're selling vehicles. So BYD Song and BYD Yuan Plus and onwards. So that's one of the reasons. We'll take a closer look at this. Thank you so much, Brian. This was great. We got to keep a close eye on BYD, but it's okay. The market is massive. We want them to succeed, but Tesla is doing really well. So when you compare the two together, this is going to be the new world order. Thanks, Brian.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. Thanks, Herbert.